I never thought I would find myself in a situation like this. My name is David, and I'm a 38-year-old guy who's been married to my high school sweetheart, Sarah, for over 15 years. We had what I thought was a textbook relationship: love, laughter, and a couple of kids. We built a life together in a quaint little neighborhood in Ohio, and I was proud of the life we created. But that was before everything crumbled, revealing cracks I never saw coming. It all started when my mother fell ill. She was in her late 60s and I was her primary caregiver. I spent a few weeks away from home, helping her recover from surgery. During that time, I kept in touch with Sarah, checking in daily, making sure she was managing with the kids and everything. Initially, things seemed fine. Sarah would send pictures of the kids and we'd chat about mundane stuff, but I started to notice subtle changes. The first red flag was her phone. Sarah was always glued to it. I'd joke about it, but I could see her becoming increasingly secretive. She'd quickly close her apps if I walked into the room, and her texting habits changed. I shrugged it off as her indulging in social media or texting friends. After all, I was away and she was probably just bored, but something gnawed at me like an itch I couldn't scratch. The second sign was her demeanor. When we video called, her expression seemed rehearsed. Gone was the warmth I cherished. She'd smile, but it felt forced, like she was putting on a show. I tried to ignore the feeling and focus on my mom's recovery, telling myself everything was fine. But it was becoming increasingly hard to dismiss the thoughts creeping into my mind. One day, I decided to return home earlier than planned. I felt guilty for being away while my mother was recovering, and I wanted to surprise Sarah and the kids. It was supposed to be a joyous reunion. I packed my bags, heart full of anticipation and hope, but that hope quickly turned to dread when I pulled into my driveway. As I stepped inside, I noticed the house was unusually quiet. The kids were out with friends, so I figured Sarah was taking a moment to herself. But then I heard it, laughter and muffled voices coming from our bedroom. My heart raced. I approached slowly, dread pooling in my stomach, and as I peeked through the slightly ajar door, I saw a sight that shattered my world. There was Sarah, entwined with another man, a guy I'd never seen before. They were lost in their own world, oblivious to my presence. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing, trying to process the betrayal unfolding before my eyes. I felt like I was in a nightmare, unable to wake up. My first instinct was to confront them, to storm in and demand answers, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by shock and disbelief. I pulled out my phone, snapping a few pictures to hold as evidence because I knew Sarah would try to deny it. Just then she looked up, her eyes widened in horror. The laughter died as she recognized me. The man scrambled to get dressed, and in a panic, Sarah shouted, "David, it's not what it looks like." Oh, the irony. Because at that moment it was exactly what it looked like, my wife in bed with another man. I felt an intense surge of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness. I stepped into the room, ready for a confrontation that would change everything. "Really, Sarah, this is how you treat your husband?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady but failing. Her face morphed into a mask of confusion and fear, and the excuses began to flow. "I was lonely, you were gone, I didn't think you'd come back so soon." But that wasn't the half of it. She started weaving a story so full of lies that I could hardly breathe. In that moment, I knew I had to make a decision, whether to let this betrayal define me or to take control of my life. As her words poured out, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I felt so many things in that moment, but one stood out: I was done. I was done with her lies, her betrayal, and her excuses. I couldn't believe I had trusted her. What happened next would change everything. I was going to plan my revenge, and I wasn't going to hold back. My heart may have been breaking, but I was determined to make her feel the same pain she'd caused me. To be continued. The confrontation that followed was a whirlwind of chaos. Sarah's excuses only fueled my anger, like pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. I wanted to scream, to shake her, and make her understand the weight of her actions. But instead I stood there, arms crossed, heart racing, trying to wrap my head around what I had just witnessed. "I can't believe you. You cheat on me while I'm away caring for my mother." I shot back, unable to contain the bitterness in my voice. "What kind of person does that?" She scrambled to justify herself, her words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "David, please. It was a mistake. We were just having fun. I was feeling so alone and you were gone for weeks. You have no idea how hard it's been." I felt like I was watching a bad soap opera, the kind where the characters are so over the top that it's almost comical. Did she really think I would buy this? I thought about all the times I'd had her back, all the sacrifices I'd made for our family. Now here she was, spinning an elaborate tale that I could see through like glass. "Fun?" I echoed, incredulous. "Is that what you call it while I'm off worrying about my mother's health? You call him fun?" She opened her mouth, probably ready to concoct more lies, but I cut her off. I had no interest in hearing more of her twisted reasoning. I needed to think. I needed to plan my next steps. I felt a cold, determined rage building inside me, and I knew I wouldn't let this go unpunished. I left her standing there, still wrapped in the sheets, her face a mix of desperation and guilt. I needed to get out of that house and clear my head. I grabbed my keys and drove to a nearby park. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, replaying the confrontation in my mind. The image of her with him burned behind my eyelids. I couldn't just walk away. I felt this overwhelming urge for revenge, not out of spite alone, but because I wanted to take back some control over my life. Sarah had taken too much from me, and now it was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. Over the next few days, I kept my distance from her. I avoided conversations and stayed out of the house as much as possible. I was consumed by my thoughts of revenge, and I started mapping out a plan. I knew I needed to be careful, though. I didn't want to do anything rash that would backfire on me and potentially hurt my kids in the process. I began by gathering evidence. I went through the phone records, social media messages, anything I could find that would lay bare her betrayal. It was shocking to see the extent of her deceit. Texts filled with pet names, plans to meet up, and even photos of them together. Each piece of evidence was like a dagger to my heart, but I used that pain to fuel my resolve. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I would be prepared. I wanted her to understand the full scope of what she had done, and I wanted her to know that I wasn't just going to lie down and take it. I devised a plan that involved her new lover. I didn't know much about him, just that his name was Jake and that he was some guy. Her online yoga class. I figured it would be easy to track him down. After all, Sarah had been careless in her texting, and I had taken screenshots of everything. One evening, while she was out running errands, I decided to pay Jake a visit. I found out where he lived, just a few blocks from our neighborhood, and drove over. My heart was pounding. I didn't know what I was going to say, but I needed him to know that he had crossed a line, that he had played a part in tearing apart my family. I knocked on his door, and when he opened it, I was taken aback by how casual he looked. He was in shorts and a tank top, completely unbothered by the chaos he'd caused. "Can I help you?" he asked, a smirk playing on his lips. "I'm David," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Sarah's husband." His expression shifted from amusement to shock. "Oh, I didn't know." "Yeah, I bet you didn't," I retorted, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "You think you can just waltz in and take my wife while I'm away? What kind of man does that?" He stammered, trying to backpedal. "Look, man, it was just a fling. I didn't mean any harm. She said you guys were having issues." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "A fling? You realize you've done more than that, right? You've invaded my home, my family. How do you sleep at night?" He tried to explain, but I wasn't interested in his excuses. I wanted him to feel the weight of what he had done. I told him I had proof and that I'd be sharing it with Sarah. I could see the panic in his eyes as I laid out my plan. "Consider this a warning, Jake. If you don't end things with Sarah right now, I will make sure everyone knows what you did. Your reputation, your job, everything you care about could be at stake. You're not the hero in this story, and you're going to regret your part in it." I left him standing there, speechless, and felt a rush of satisfaction wash over me. I had taken the first step in my revenge. I couldn't wait to see Sarah's reaction when I confronted her with this new information. I knew that no matter what happened next, I wouldn't be at her mercy anymore. To be continued. Returning home after my encounter with Jake felt surreal. I had just confronted the very man who had invaded my life, and it gave me a sense of power I hadn't felt in days. I felt like I was finally taking back control, but my heart still felt heavy with betrayal. As I entered the house, I found Sarah in the living room, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, her eyes widening as she took in my expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. I couldn't help but scoff. "Oh, I don't know, maybe it's the fact that I just had a delightful chat with your friend Jake." Her face paled. "What do you mean?" "Let's not play games, Sarah. You know exactly what I mean. I went to his place today. He's going to end things with you, whether you like it or not." The color drained from her face as she processed my words. "You have no right to go after him. This is between you and me." "Oh, it is, because it sure seems like you dragged him into our marriage without a second thought." I shot back, my anger boiling over. "You think you can just cheat on me and it's all going to be fine, that I'll just forgive and forget?" She started to defend herself, but I cut her off. "You wanted fun, Sarah. Well, now you'll have a lot of time to think about that fun and how it cost you everything." Tears welled in her eyes, and it made me feel nothing but contempt. I had spent years caring for her, and now she was reduced to this emotional wreck, trying to justify her actions. "David, please, you don't understand. It was a mistake. I love you." "Love?" I laughed bitterly. "If this is what love looks like, then I'm not sure I want any part of it. You had me away worrying about my mother, and you decided to entertain another man in our bed." She started to apologize profusely, but I had heard enough. I stood my ground, determined not to let her words sway me. "I think it's time for you to find somewhere else to stay. I need space to figure things out." Her expression shifted from desperation to anger. "You can't just kick me out. You don't mean that." "I do mean it," I said firmly. "You've made your choice, and now it's time for me to make mine." The confrontation escalated as she pleaded with me to reconsider. I could see the panic in her eyes as she realized I wasn't backing down. I felt a sense of relief as I watched her break down, but I also felt guilty. I never wanted it to come to this, but she had forced my hand. After what felt like an eternity, she finally stormed out of the room, leaving me in stunned silence. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside me. I didn't feel victorious or empowered. I felt hollow. As the days passed, I watched Sarah pack her things. I had offered her a few days to find a place to stay, but I didn't expect it would be so painful to watch her leave. I hated her for what she had done, yet I felt an overwhelming sadness for the years we had shared. I had spent so long building a life with her, and now it felt like it was all crumbling around me. The kids were still oblivious to what was happening. Thank God for that. I couldn't bear the thought of them being caught in this mess, so I kept everything under wraps, shielding them from the turmoil of our relationship. I wanted to be the strong parent, the one who kept everything together, even as my world was falling apart. That weekend, Sarah moved out. I watched her drive away with a suitcase in the back of her car, a mix of emotions battling inside me. On one hand, I felt a sense of relief that I was finally free from her betrayal. On the other hand, I mourned the loss of the life we had built together. I tried to focus on the kids and keep my mind busy, but the weight of the situation was suffocating. I decided to reach out to a close friend, Mike, who had been my confidant throughout this ordeal. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me navigate the emotional wreckage I was experiencing. We met up at a bar later that week, and as I sipped my drink, I laid everything out for him. "Dude, I just can't believe she would do this to me," I confessed, my voice heavy with sorrow. "I took care of her when she needed me the most, and she repaid me by sleeping with some guy." Mike shook his head. "That's messed up, man, but you did the right thing by standing up for yourself. You deserve better than that." "I know," I said, a wave of anger washing over me again. "But it still hurts. I thought we had something strong, you know. I trusted her." "Trust is a fragile thing, man. Once it's broken, it's hard to rebuild," he replied. "But you can't let this define you. You need to focus on yourself now, figure out what you want moving forward." I nodded, grateful for his support. I knew he was right. This was my opportunity to reclaim my life. I had spent years prioritizing Sarah and our family over my own happiness. It was time to shift the focus back to me. As the night wore on, we talked about everything, my feelings, the future, and what I wanted to do next. I realized that my journey wasn't just about revenge. It was about healing, growing, and rediscovering who I was outside of my marriage. I knew I had a long road ahead, but I felt a sense of determination growing within me. I left the bar that night with a sense of clarity. I was ready to embrace this new chapter of my life, no matter how painful it might be. I needed to take care of myself to heal and prepare for whatever came next. To be continued. The days turned into weeks and I found myself slowly getting used to the new normal. Sarah had moved out, and while the house felt strangely empty without her, I was also starting to feel a sense of relief. I didn't have to tiptoe around her feelings anymore. I could focus on myself and the kids without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. That said, it wasn't easy. The guilt of what had happened weighed heavily on my conscience. I knew the kids would eventually ask questions, and I dreaded the moment I would have to explain that their family was breaking apart. For now, I kept things light and they seemed to adjust well to the changes. I spent as much time as I could with them, taking them to the park, cooking their favorite meals, and trying my best to be present. But every now and then, thoughts of Sarah would creep back in, especially during the quiet moments. I missed the camaraderie we had once shared, the late-night talks, the laughter, the inside jokes. Yet every memory came attached with another thought. How could she do this to me? One afternoon, I decided to take a different approach to my healing. I joined a local gym, looking to channel my energy into something productive. I figured getting back into shape would help boost my confidence and distract me from my emotional turmoil. The first few workouts were brutal. I was out of shape and out of practice. But with each passing day, I started to feel stronger, both physically and mentally. At the gym, I met a few new people, and slowly I began to socialize outside of my regular friend group. One of the trainers, Lisa, was particularly friendly and encouraging. She was in her early 30s, vibrant and full of life. She didn't know about my recent breakup, but her bright personality was a breath of fresh air and gave me the motivation to push through. As weeks turned into months, my interaction with Lisa became more frequent. We joke around during workouts, and I found myself looking forward to seeing her. I realized that I hadn't felt this way in a long time, like there was a spark of something new beginning to ignite within me. One Friday afternoon, after a particularly tough workout, Lisa invited me to grab a smoothie with her. I hesitated but then agreed. If nothing else, it was a chance to escape my thoughts and enjoy some light-hearted conversation. We sat outside a little cafe, sipping smoothies and chatting about everything under the sun, fitness, our favorite movies, and our lives. I felt a connection growing, and for the first time since the split, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe there was life after Sarah. As the conversation flowed, I decided to take a leap and shared a bit about my recent struggles, omitting the details about Sarah, but letting her know I was going through a rough patch. Lisa listened intently, offering her support and encouragement. "You deserve to be happy, David," she said, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. "It's never too late to find the right person." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I realized I had been so focused on the betrayal and the anger that I hadn't allowed myself to think about what happiness could look like moving forward. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a shift within me. For the first time, I was excited about the possibilities ahead. As the weeks rolled on, my interactions with Lisa continued. We began to hang out more often, and I found myself smiling and laughing again. It felt liberating to let go of the pain and embrace the future. I wasn't ready for anything serious yet, but I welcomed the companionship, the laughter, and the fun. However, the shadow of my past wasn't gone just yet. One day, Sarah texted me, asking if we could talk. I had been dreading this moment. Part of me was curious to know how she had been, but another part was terrified of reopening old wounds. After some back and forth, I reluctantly agreed to meet. We chose a coffee shop, public, neutral ground. When I arrived, I saw her sitting at a table, her expression unreadable. I took a deep breath and approached her, bracing myself for whatever was about to unfold. "David," she began, her voice shaky. "Thank you for meeting me." I nodded, uncertain of what to say. "What did you want to talk about?" She looked down at her hands, and for a moment I saw a glimmer of vulnerability. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since I moved out. I know what I did was terrible and I want to apologize. I've realized how much I took for granted, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it." Her words hung in the air, and I felt a mix of emotions clawing at me. "You hurt me, Sarah. You broke my trust, and you broke our family. There's no easy way to come back from that." She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "I know. I'm not asking for absolution. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to change, to be a better person. I've been going to therapy, and I'm working on myself." I felt a flicker of something. Was it pity, compassion? I didn't know. "You should focus on yourself. We can't just pretend this didn't happen." "I understand," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to let you know that I regret what happened, and I'm sorry for the pain I caused." It was strange to see her like this, vulnerable and regretful. But I couldn't let that sway me. I had to protect myself and my feelings. "I appreciate you saying that, but I'm not sure we can go back to how things were. I have to think about the kids and what's best for them." She nodded, understanding the truth in my words. The conversation shifted to logistics, how we would handle co-parenting, visitation schedules, and so on. It was a stark reminder of the reality we were living in. As we parted ways, I felt a sense of closure. I didn't know if Sarah's journey toward change would lead to anything meaningful, but I hoped she would find a path to healing for herself. For me, it was a step toward finally moving on. And with Lisa in my life, I felt ready to embrace whatever future awaited me, one day at a time. To be continued. After my meeting with Sarah, I felt a wave of mixed emotions wash over me. It had been a long time since I'd seen her so vulnerable and open about her regrets. While I appreciated her apology, I also felt a strong desire to protect my newfound peace and happiness. I had come too far to allow the past to creep back into my life, and I was determined to keep moving forward. In the following weeks, my relationship with Lisa blossomed. We continued to meet regularly, and she brought a sense of joy into my life that I hadn't realized I had been missing. We explored new restaurants, went for hikes, and had long conversations that flowed effortlessly. There was a spark between us, and it felt exhilarating to experience that connection once again. One evening, while we were watching a movie at my place, Lisa leaned into me during a particularly suspenseful scene. I could feel her warmth next to me, and my heart raced. I turned to look at her, and before I knew it, we were sharing a kiss. It was soft and gentle, and I could feel the weight of my past begin to lift, if only for a moment. As we pulled away, she smiled, and I couldn't help but grin back. "Wow, that was unexpected," I said, feeling both elated and a bit nervous. "Unexpected but nice," she replied. "I've really enjoyed spending time with you, David. You're a great guy." Her words melted away any lingering doubts I had. For the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope for my future. I realized that I didn't need to dwell on the past. Instead, I could focus on building new connections and experiences. However, as blissful as those moments were, reality had a way of reminding me that my past wasn't entirely gone. One sunny Saturday afternoon, I took the kids to the park. We were having a great time playing frisbee and enjoying ice cream when I spotted Sarah across the field. She was with a couple of friends, their kids running around, playing together. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I hadn't seen her since our last meeting, and suddenly I was flooded with memories of our family outings, the laughter and joy we once shared. My kids were too absorbed in their play to notice her, but I felt torn between wanting to shield them from any potential awkwardness and wanting to take the high road. As fate would have it, Sarah spotted us and made her way over. "Hey, David, it's good to see you," she said, a bright smile on her face that felt forced. "Yeah, you too," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "The kids are having fun." "They look great," she said, glancing at them with a hint of nostalgia. "I miss them so much." At that moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. I could see that she truly missed our children, but I also remembered the hurt that had driven us apart. "They miss you too," I said, trying to keep the conversation light. "They had a blast at the zoo last week." As we chatted, I could feel the tension hanging between us. Sarah asked about how I was doing, and I mentioned my new workout routine and how I was focusing on my own well-being. I noticed her eyes flicker with something. Was it jealousy? Regret? I couldn't tell, but it made me feel uneasy. Finally, she said, I'm really trying to get my life back on track. I've been going to therapy and working through my issues. It's a long road, but I'm committed to making changes. I nodded, appreciating her honesty, but I also felt a surge of protectiveness. That's good to hear, Sarah. I hope you find what you're looking for, but right now, the kids need stability. I understand, she replied, her gaze steady. I just hope that one day we can all be a family again, even if it's different. I felt my heart ache at her words. Part of me wanted to believe that reconciliation was possible, but I knew that trust was fragile. Let's take it one day at a time, I said, choosing my words carefully. For now, it's about the kids. With that, we exchanged a few more pleasantries before she returned to her friends. As I watched her walk away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was a pivotal moment in our journey. While I didn't foresee a return to the old ways, perhaps there was a path toward co-parenting that could be healthy for our children. That evening, Lisa invited me over for dinner. She had been cooking, and the aroma of something delicious filled her apartment. As we sat down to eat, I shared the day's events with her, the awkward encounter with Sarah, and how I was navigating the complexities of co-parenting. David, it sounds like you're handling everything really well, Lisa said, her voice warm and supportive. It's not easy, but you're doing a great job of prioritizing the kids. Thanks, Lisa, I'm trying, I replied, feeling a sense of gratitude for her understanding. It's just tough sometimes, you know. The past keeps creeping in and I don't want it to affect what we have. She reached across the table, taking my hand. I get it, but remember, you deserve to be happy. It's okay to let go of the past and embrace the future. Her words resonated with me. I realized that I had been holding onto the past for too long, and it was time to let it go. I needed to focus on the present and the people who truly mattered in my life. As the evening went on, we laughed, shared stories, and enjoyed each other's company. It was refreshing to feel a sense of normalcy and connection. I realized that Lisa was becoming an important part of my journey, and I felt grateful for her presence. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the day's events and the conversations I had with both Sarah and Lisa. I understood that healing was a process, and it wasn't linear. There would be ups and downs, but I was willing to face them head-on. I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it might bring. I had learned that it was okay to pursue happiness and that the choices I made today could shape a better tomorrow. With Lisa by my side and a renewed sense of purpose, I felt ready to take on the world. To be continued. As the weeks continued, life began to fall into a new rhythm. The initial chaos after Sarah's departure had settled, and I was starting to adopt a more manageable routine: work, the kids, and my time with Lisa. Each day felt like a step toward something better, and I was eager to keep building on that foundation. The co-parenting arrangement with Sarah was a learning process. We set up a schedule that worked for both of us, allowing the kids to spend quality time with each parent. Surprisingly, our communication improved. We'd text about the kids, keeping it cordial and focused on their needs. While I still had lingering feelings about her betrayal, I was beginning to see her in a new light. She was making an effort to be better, and I couldn't help but acknowledge that. One Saturday afternoon, I took the kids to their favorite pizza place, and as we sat at our usual booth, I felt a wave of contentment. They were laughing, their faces smeared with cheese and tomato sauce, and I realized how much I cherished these moments. I was fully present, and it reminded me of what truly mattered in life: my children. Later that day, Sarah texted me, asking if she could join us for dinner. My first impulse was to decline, but I paused. The kids missed her, and maybe it would be good for all of us to share a meal together. I hesitated, but finally agreed, cautiously optimistic. When she arrived, the kids ran to her, their faces lighting up with joy. I watched them embrace her, and it filled me with a bittersweet mixture of emotions. Seeing them together reminded me of the family we once were, but I also recognized how much had changed. We sat at the table, and for the first time in a while, there was an air of normalcy in our interactions. We talked about the kids' school projects, their hobbies, and how they had been adjusting. I noticed Sarah's demeanor was different. She was more relaxed, engaging, and genuinely interested in their lives. As the evening wore on, she thanked me for inviting her. I know I messed up, but I want to be a good mom. I'm really trying, she said, her sincerity evident in her voice. I can see that, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. The kids appreciate it. We shared a few more laughs, reminiscing about funny moments from the past, and for a brief moment, it felt like we were returning to a familiar space. But just as I was starting to feel hopeful, I reminded myself to stay cautious. Past could not be forgotten, but perhaps there was a way to move forward that honored our experiences while forging a new path. After dinner, as the kids played in the living room, I pulled Sarah aside. I want to make sure we're on the same page about the kids. They're our priority. Absolutely, she agreed, her expression earnest. I'm committed to being the best co-parent I can be. I don't want to screw this up again. That conversation marked a turning point. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. While I couldn't predict the future, I could see the potential for a healthier relationship between us as co-parents. I hoped that with continued effort, we could create a supportive environment for our children. In the following months, I focused on healing, both for myself and my relationship with Sarah. I continued to see Lisa, and our bond deepened. We went on more adventures together, exploring new places and enjoying life. I found that laughing and sharing experiences with her brought me a sense of joy that I hadn't felt in ages. One sunny afternoon, Lisa and I went for a hike in the nearby mountains. As we reached the summit, the view took my breath away. It was a moment of clarity, standing there surrounded by nature, appreciating the beauty of life. "This is amazing," Lisa said, her eyes sparkling. "I'm so glad we did this together." I turned to her, feeling a sense of warmth wash over me. "Me too. It's been a long journey, but I'm grateful for where I am now." She smiled, and for a moment, everything felt right in the world. I realized how much I had grown since the upheaval of my marriage. I had learned to prioritize myself, to embrace the present, and to open my heart to new possibilities. As we made our way back down the mountain, I felt a sense of hope for the future. I was no longer defined by what had happened with Sarah. Instead, I was becoming the person I wanted to be. Months passed, and the dynamics between Sarah and me continued to evolve. We established a respectful co-parenting relationship, attending the kids' events together, and gradually, I appreciated the effort she was making to be a better mother. That doesn't mean we didn't have our bumps along the way, but I found myself less affected by her presence. I was more focused on my life, my kids, and the positivity that Lisa brought into my world. One evening, as I was tucking the kids into bed, they both turned to me with wide eyes. "Dad, do you think you'll ever get married again?" my daughter asked, her curiosity shining through. I paused, considering the question before replying. "Maybe one day, sweetheart, but right now I just want to make sure we're all happy and healthy together." They nodded, satisfied with my answer, and I felt a sense of peace. I was learning to embrace the unknowns of life, appreciating the present while cautiously looking toward the future. In the end, I learned that life can take unexpected turns, but it's how we adapt and grow that truly matters. I had weathered the storm of betrayal, anger, and heartache, and now I stood on the other side, ready to embrace whatever life had in store for me. As I closed the door to their room, I smiled, feeling grateful for the journey that brought me here. I was ready to face each new day, knowing that I had the strength to move forward and create a life filled with happiness, love, and hope.